Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third episode of the PixelPlay podcast, the podcast where two grown-ass men delve into the big news stories of gaming, as well as gush and rant about the past, present, and future of gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, with my co-host, Adam CSRadical. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about Stadia closing its two first-party studios. We're going to be talking about the MLB The Show moving from a PlayStation exclusive to a Xbox multi-platform game. We're going to be talking about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition release and all the news coming out of Mass Effect. And we're going to be comparing our PlayStation stats as the PlayStation blog has released its 2020 year in review. Before we get started, Adam, just want to say, how are you doing today?
I am doing so wonderfully that every time I stare at this PlayStation wrap-up, my brain goes, oh, thank God it's a COVID year.
Yeah, it's fine. We do this podcast now. It's work-related. It's fine.
Yeah,
we can justify
I think I can also
now.
make the excuse, too. It's like, I have to.
We have to.
I have to have
podcast.
no life for this life, okay?
Exactly. What else are we going to do with it? So... no, I completely agree. We need it in order to make sure that we can talk about stuff on this podcast. At least that's how I'm going to justify it. Hopefully the wife doesn't listen to this episode and realize
Except
how much
for the
time
first
she gives
story
me
that
to
we're
play
going to
video
do. Because the first story didn't require us to play anything, because Lord knows no one is.
No one's playing it. Yeah, that's a good segue. So, first story on the day, Stadia closes its first-party studios. For those of you who aren't aware, Stadia is Google's answer to PlayStation and Microsoft. It is the cloud-based streaming gaming platform. And yeah, it is closing its two first-party studios who have yet to release a game. According to, I believe this was Polygon, Google will close its two game studios located in Montreal and Los Angeles. Neither had released any games yet, and that closure will impact around 150 developers, one source familiar with Stadia operations said. The company says it will try to find those developers new roles at Google. Google will continue to operate the Stadia gaming service and its $10 monthly Stadia Pro service. It's unclear how many, if any, exclusive games will come to the service, though the company has indicated that it can still sign new games and will bring more third-party releases to the platform. It goes on to say the company plans to begin offering its Stadia tech to publishers, opening up the possibility for Stadia to become streaming tech for other video game companies. Google's head Stadia operations longtime console executive Phil Harrison will focus on pursuing these new partnerships. Adam, what do you make of this information?
Well, two things. One, I was completely unaware they had two solo studios, so that was my first bit of information from that story. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you guys were making anything. And then two, I'm not surprised this happened. The only thing is I'm surprised it happened so soon. I figured this is a potential pathway, but I figured they would have got a game out first. Assuming that I knew that they had a first-party studio, I would have been like, okay, they'll at least try. Like, Amazon tried to make games. They just failed horribly, but at least they tried. In Google's case...
They're just like, you know what? No, we didn't lose. We just quit.
It's like, I'm not
we
fired.
Didn't fail. Yeah, we didn't fail. No, we didn't fail. We just never tried. No, and I completely agree. Like, I think it's interesting that these game companies, and like they didn't have small people. Like the creator of Assassin's Creed was one of the people that was working on in these studios. So it's not like they had nobody or like they had like no one consequential. Like they had big names in the studio for it to shut down.
Well, I'm sure Jade Raymond is so upset with the probable like package that she got as she went out the door. So, I'm sure she's probably not hurting, and I'm sure somebody will scoop her up pretty quick. She's already gone through Ubisoft and EA over the course of her career. I think she'll do fine. She probably just saw the dumpster fire and went, I'm going to get the hell out of this before it becomes really bad.
Yeah, so what does this mean for Stadia? Like, is it long for this world? Is it in its death throes?
I mean, it can be in this world as long as they want it to be. Google has the money to keep this alive as much as they pretty much want it to. But as we've kind of learned with Google and their side projects, they tend to get bored of their toys very quickly. And if it's not making them tons of money, if it's not an automatic success, like it won't stay very long. And I think Stadia is now, I don't know if it's on thin ice, but I think it needs to start paying attention to when the cracks start to show up.
Yeah, I feel like they've struggled at the gate, and I mean, I don't think that's I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of consoles when they first launch, it's hit or miss whether it's going to land. It's not like it's going to be a smash hit from the very beginning. It takes time to become, a massive console. But I think it's just the fact that I think it was just, rushed out. The fact that it came out and it had like its big games were like Doom Eternal, which had already been out for months ahead of time. I think that's going to be one of the things, like it just wasn't ready. And the fact that you have first party studios who don't really have anything to show for already yet, like that's kind of a huge problem.
There are honestly a few mistakes that they made right off the gate, or right out of the gate, and the biggest one is that they had no exclusives. There was no reason to get the platform because it's a cloud gaming service, but they already exist in PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass, which, to some extent at that point when they first announced Stadia, it wasn't like Game Pass wasn't nearly the juggernaut that it's become now. PlayStation Now is still kind of the same like non-factor that it was back then. But realistically, they went into a market that was A, in its very early development, and B, didn't really have a hook. So, apart from the Google name, they didn't really have anything that was supposed to entice you. It was just a service. It was almost like they were just trying to be the Netflix of gaming without having the titles that Netflix has to pull you in.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is like you said, it's an online streaming game, so like there's no physical hardware, which is one a great thing if you have strong, reliable internet. But I think the problem is when you look at something like Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, it's easy for them to stream because it's a linear one path. You show this scene, then this scene, then this scene. But to stream games is quite challenging, and I know they do it with PlayStation Now and Game Pass. I believe you can download. So the fact that you can't download is an issue. But I think they were an interesting idea. The fact that you could have a high-end gaming PC theoretically just hooked up in some server warehouse and you don't need to be updating and running it. I think it was just they came out with a bad model in the sense that you pay I think it's like 150 bucks for the console so you can get the controller, and then I think you're paying for the monthly service and then you have to buy the games on top. Like it seems kind of weird to do it that way.
That was the
And
big thing, too, was the fact that you were having to pay for the games that you're streaming, which makes no sense.
exactly, right? I mean, it's either, do something like Steam where you can get the platform for free and you pay for the games, or, buy your way in and then once you're in, you get these games. But I think if you look at stuff like I think inadvertently one of the things that probably made the most sense was, CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. I hear runs fantastic on that. And so if you are either a console player who, doesn't have like a console player who isn't getting a good experience, or you don't have the best gaming PC, Stadia was looking like an awesome way to kind of get the best of Cyberpunk 2077.
And they didn't
But the
really
problem is no one
push it
had it.
either.
That's the thing. That was something that I think that was a missed opportunity. So I think they're trying to go for the console players, but I think really what they should be going for is the PC gaming crowd. So I think that was a missed thing, and to have a service provided without any first party studios to show like, hey, what makes this significant? Like, I think that's an issue there.
Because that's the thing, right? Like, I really do believe that the exclusivity of titles at least draws you into a console. Like, you don't go to PlayStation just because it's the best console. You go there because God of War's on there, Uncharted's on there, Ghost of Tsushima's on there. Like, you have that. And if you're an Xbox guy, you're going there because Halo's on there, Gears of War's on there. Like, there's a reason you're there. Same with Nintendo, same with Steam. Because, actually, sorry, that's a lie. Steam doesn't really have the exclusivity. Epic kind of is the only one that really does that. But like
Well,
Steam has just become like it. Steam doesn't need exclusivity because it became the brand of PC gaming. So that's kind
yeah,
of the different case with them. But console wise, you're drawn to a specific console for a reason. You don't just come into the game just being a place to play because Steam is that market and you can't have two Steams. It doesn't work that way. So you have to give something to draw people in. And if Google being the name behind it is the draw, that's not good enough to gamers because gamers are like, okay, you're a search engine. What am I getting from you?
yeah. Well, I think for them the specialty that they have or what they bring to the table is the cloud gaming that they provide. But I think the problem is that you can't test how well it works until you buy it. So they almost need to have a way that if you could have it where I could plug in any controller I have into my system and I can get onto the Google Stadia for free and test it out, great. Then maybe I'll check it out. But I mean, I think if you had a situation where, yeah, I can go in for free and I could go get Cyberpunk 2077 and play it right there without having to buy into this ecosystem, I think you would have had a lot of people migrate over. But I mean, I can't even figure out where to buy a Stadia. Like, Have you seen one anywhere? Like, do you know where to get one if you wanted one?
I mean, I'm just going through the site right now and checking out like a free trial to see what it if it tries to do anything with that. But I don't know. I'm trying not to get too far because I don't want to end up putting my credit card in on something that I don't want to do. So
Yeah, the free trial.
I would hope that at this point, like, I'm assuming that it's been out there long enough that I would be shocked if you don't have other controller support, that you can just use anything else and that you can't just use the service as it is, because that would be a pretty silly move on their part. Because I think if you're just a streaming service but you need their controller, it seems kind of backwards because anybody can do anything with that.
Yeah, Steam tried that and it didn't go super well.
Not to mention their controller doesn't exactly look that amazing. Like it really just looks like every other controller. So the thing is like, why am I paying for that? Especially if I'm giving you a monthly subscription and I'm still paying for games. Like, you shouldn't be making me pay for anything. In fact, if I'm paying a monthly service, you should be giving me the controller.
Yeah, I'd almost like to see it where it's like I guess my question to you is, what does Stadia look like in the future? Where does it go from here?
I mean, apart from being in the ground,
Yeah, can it be salvaged at this point, and what does it have to do in order to stick
the
around, or
the
what
only
happens to it?
way the only way I think it can be salvaged at this point is a major publisher has to get online with them as an exclusive publisher. And I'm not talking like an indie studio. I'm talking like something of the level of like a Bandai Namco. I'm not
Yeah,
saying a level of a Capcom because that might be that might be pushing your luck because Capcom wouldn't be stupid enough to do that. But like something that's up there where it's like, oh, I know that name instead of, who. And I don't think that's going to happen for Stadia because I think they all recognize that why the hell would we be exclusive to one platform, and especially one that doesn't have a proven track record. So, to be completely honest, I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this thing gets shut down.
yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think its days are numbered. I think it's a neat idea that just we're not quite there yet. I think people are still. I know there's some people who've gone digital, but it's not quite ready. We're not quite ready yet for a streaming gaming service. At least the way they designed it. I think it would have to be. I think they have to revamp it and have it where you can get onto the platform for free. Like anyone can get on Steam, and then if you want to play and dabble, then you can start buying games or even renting games. Like imagine you play. I'm going to rent the game for the month or something like that.
I mean,
20
Xbox
bucks.
Game Pass has proven the model.
Exactly, right? So you just need a way that people can get on for free, and either that's charge for the system, get the controller, get the Chromecast or whatever, you're good to go, and then just rent the games for free, or you know you get the you use whatever you have at home and you pay the service fee, a rental fee to get access, and then rent them or something. I think, to be honest, I don't think an exclusive is really going to do it because to get a big exclusive like you mentioned, that equally can have you know that can blow back in their faces, being like, oh, why are you buying up these exclusives and putting them into your system and locking them behind
Well,
everything else?
and that's the thing too, is it probably wouldn't work regardless. But I think it's the only thing that they could do because I don't know if changing the system right now is going to really do much at this point because I think the stink's already there.
Yeah,
I think people have already like decided that they're pushing it to the side and they're not coming back to it. I don't know if there's anything Stadia could do apart from giving away games for free, like major games for free to pull people in. But Epic's done that, and as we've seen with the recent statistics came up from 2020, they didn't make a lot of sales. Like in terms of games like being sold, they didn't sell a lot. It's clear
yeah,
that a lot of Epic's games that are getting transactions are all the freebies.
yeah,
So it seems like just making shit free isn't going to automatically get people to spend money on your service. Now, if it works as a subscription like Stadia does, maybe that gives a better shot at it. But I don't know if it's like a massive enough shift that it would suddenly make the platform viable. It just might make it live a little bit longer.
yeah. I almost feel like I feel like it was like a missed opportunity that they need to partner with a PC centric gaming company and have some sort of agreement with them, like, hey, don't even make it exclusive on Stadia, but best experience. And I feel like I know Cyberpunk lined up with Microsoft, but that would have been a huge win for them if they're like, hey, get the best experience on the cheapest platform with Stadia. You buy Cyberpunk, you get the console, or you buy the console, you get you know Cyberpunk 2077 included or something. And I think that would have gotten a lot of people in. So I think, to be honest, I think where their future's headed, I don't think Stadia as a standalone console is going to be around, but I think where it's going to end up is I think that technology is going to get scooped up, whether it's through Ubisoft doing something like this, or if it's another one, Activision or EA. I know they have their own services, but I think I've heard that the streaming service and technology they have works well. but I think it's not going to be something. I think they need to have a gaming brand pick it up and use it there. So could be like Square Enix or something like that could grab it. Like that would kind of make sense. Because I know a lot of them have it, but I don't think Square Enix has anything like that, do they?
No, I don't know if they knew. Like apart from like something like Final Fantasy 14 Online, which maybe that'd be some way of getting around that. But generally speaking, is I don't know if there even is room for another company to come in. Because I mean, Google tried it and didn't do it. There's not really many other companies with a capital that could go that far, and Amazon I don't think cares enough about the gaming industry to really try to begin with. So because they got way too many other things they can do, they don't need to
Yeah.
be putting time into it. I think
Yeah,
at
no,
this point it's almost a fool's errand if you're not one of the big companies. I don't know if anybody else can really compete with them now, considering we live in this world where everything's a massive conglomerate of companies. So
yeah, I'm just trying to think who would be the next one. I
I
mean,
mean, the only other people that could try would be Apple. In all
Samsung?
honesty, no, I don't think Samsung would bother.
No.
They would probably
Uh,
just partner with somebody like Sony or something.
yeah, who knows? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but like it is interesting because the article does say that um, Google is now starting to offer its Stadia tech to publishers. So it might be one of those things. Who
It may
knows?
be something that helps like other services, but I don't know if the Stadia name is going to have that much more staying power for maybe like the next couple of years.
No, it's not going to be much longer. I don't think we're going to see it as Stadia, the console, much longer. So yeah, speaking of exclusives, one that is no longer an exclusive, MLB The Show 21. Do they just call it
Yes.
21? MLB
Yep.
21 The Show? Yeah,
Mhm.
so that one, if you're not familiar, is a traditional PlayStation exclusive, or has been at least for what, 10, 15 years?
I mean, it's made by Sony San Diego Studios, so
Yeah.
it's been under their brand for quite some time.
Yeah, so that one has been a Sony brand for a while, but I guess back in 2019, Sony and MLB came to an agreement that this franchise is going to be a multi-platform video game partnership. And by came to an agreement, probably MLB said, "Hey, if you want to keep this license, you got to start putting it on some other consoles." And so Sony kind of probably reluctantly agreed and moved it over to the Xbox. So we just got confirmation that MLB 21 The Show or MLB The Show 21 is going to be coming to PS4, PS5, and the Xbox and Xbox Series X. I think April 20th. Uh, what's your thoughts on this, Adam? What's the first thing you want to start with?
Well, I mean, I've been playing the last couple of games. I skipped the newest one before this just
Hmm.
because I finally got to a point where like I love baseball. Like baseball is my biggest sport next to hockey, as a by law here as us Canadians have to look at it as. But sports games generally are very, very, very grubby in terms of trying to get every penny out of your pocket. We obviously think of like Madden and FIFA, for example. MLB The Show is still kind of in that frame because it has its ultimate team. It has the spend money on random friggin' packs that you might get stuff that carries no value in the real world. So it still is as dumb as that. But it's still a really solid game. Like most people will tell you that the show is actually a really legit, good simulation baseball series. It's not, a copy and paste. They actually do put some legitimate work into this game. So it makes perfect sense that with the success that it's been, because it is one of the more highly rated sports games, that MLB went, hey, we like money too, so why don't we put this somewhere else?
Yeah, well, I
And
think
I'm sure Sony was reluctant, but they probably also went, wait, that's double the money that we get now off this. All right, you pulled our leg.
yeah, well, I think it's probably not to diminish the work they do, but it's probably easy money. Like you've got Sony San Diego, they've been doing this for years. They know what they're doing, and I imagine, like once again, not trying to take away the work that they do, but I imagine that it's not a lot of work to take the base model that they have and tweak it as opposed to it's not like they're starting from the ground up. So I think MLB saw FIFA and NFL and everyone like all of those sports games and saying like, look, they're making way more cash by going on both platforms. Why are we tying ourselves to one console? And I think Sony didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to like, hey, yeah, we still have the license, we still have the platform, like we're still making money even on the Xbox sales. I mean, it probably sucks for them to have to pay that, fee to Microsoft to sell it on their store, but I think they're going to come out ahead with this one. But that being said, like I don't know, like if MLB The Show is really going to move much in terms of, oh man, I was on PlayStation, but hey, I can get it on Xbox now. Sign me up. I'm gonna jump on that one. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna
I don't
move the
think it's
needle.
meant to pull anybody. I think it's just going to complement people who have the Xbox.
Yeah,
Because I
and I
mean,
guess yeah,
sports fans generally like and it might just me like being a little bit like stereotypical, but I find that the sports crowd generally leans the Xbox route anyway. I mean, Xbox One was originally being sold to people as a TV box with ESPN.
yeah.
So it's not really surprising. Like, okay, I'm going to go full stereotype. I know the Xbox console is the bro console. And what do bros like? They love their freaking shooters, they love their beer, and they love their sports. So for, quite frankly, the most beer heavy sport that isn't NASCAR to be actually, sorry, football's probably
Just
second.
interrupt. We also like beer and like shooting games and all that kind of stuff. So don't we're in this Venn diagram a little bit, but I know
Well,
where you're
yeah,
going
but we
with.
also do we really do we really put the bro culture on Canadians, or do we immediately think of like American colleges?
Yeah, yeah. I know where you're going. I just yeah. I'm like, don't give the beer. That's not an exclusive in that little circle.
Sorry, I forget. We like beer here. They like water. I forgot. My bad. My mistake. My mistake. Sorry.
It's flavored water down there.
I don't drink at all, so I wouldn't know the game. So.
Oh, look at you just getting all big and just picking fights that you're not even in.
That's basically me in a nutshell. But
well, it's good to know that if ever we get in a fight, that you're gonna talk some crap.
I'm gonna talk
fight,
mad
and then
shit
just back
and
up
then walk
as I'm
away.
Good to know. Good to know.
But yeah, going back to the game itself, like I'm not shocked by any of this. It makes perfect sense. It's the kind of game like a sports game should be on every console to begin with. I think an exclusive sports game that is like a major AAA game should be on every console. In fact, I'd rather this be going beyond that and go on PC and Switch as well if possible. Because sports universal. Like there are certain games out there that are exclusive that are kind of tailored for a given audience. Like it took a while for a lot of Japanese games to get off of Sony because most people associated Sony with like the Japanese RPG style stuff. Mm-hmm. Xbox was always the, I guess,
big
like the
muscly guy with a gun. Yeah.
So
it's the Red Bull Monster Energy drink, 13-year-old like screaming in the microphone.
Yeah, I mean it makes perfect sense. Now the only interesting question that I'm going to have when it comes to this, and maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. I wonder if a cut happens with the microtransactions to Sony or not, like the studio itself. I assume they must get a cut of any microtransaction. That's the one interesting thing, because obviously they get a cut from any game sale, but do they get a cut off the DLC because that's specifically tailored from the store? I would imagine so.
Sorry, does Microsoft or does Sony get a cut?
I would assume like so Sony get a cut if you buy like packs off of the Microsoft store. I would assume they do.
I would 100% do. Well, I mean, I think it all sort of. I mean, I'm not a business person by any sense of the imagination, but I would imagine that it goes like Microsoft takes its cut and then it trickles down into Sony San Diego, and then I guess because it's a first party, it eventually trickles up to Sony. Like,
I mean, realistically, it's a win-win because Microsoft now gets to make some money and PlayStation is going to make even more money. So the only thing that I worry is if now that you're doing it for multiple platforms, does that hinder the quality as much? Because now you're working with different frameworks. In this specific generation, they are making it for PS4 and Xbox One as well, so there is that. But I wonder if because they were making it for one console, it was a lot easier than it is for making it for multiples. It might also make them want to copy and paste more now, which might turn it into another Madden or FIFA-like. That's the one thing that I would think about, but I don't know if it's worth worrying about right now because San Diego Studios has pretty much proven that they actually care. Like I've kept up with them for a couple of years. They do some incredible work with their community management and stuff. Like these guys at least have a track record that has shown that they should be trusted. Although I would have said that about CD Projekt Red a couple of months ago, and we all know where that went. So who knows?
We're developing a theme when it comes to we're developing a theme when it comes to CD Projekt Red. They're not gonna work with us in the future.
No. But I think at this point it's like anything else. These guys have the track record. It's more than willing to give them at least a fair shake to see what happens with this new setup, and whether or not it stays like that is yet to be seen. It's just that, of course, when they're on multiple platforms and with more money on the line, you wonder if things get more predatory. That's the one worry you really come into.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the game is going to change in terms of quality. I think being a first-party studio, they're always going to be like the agreement is that they launch it on Xbox. I don't think there was ever an agreement that it was going to be like it had to be good on the Xbox. So I think it's gonna be one of those things where they're gonna be like, yeah, put like 80% of this into PlayStation and our console, and then just do whatever you have to make it functional. And I'm not trying to make them seem scummy or gross in that practice, but rather just their priority is going to be PlayStation. They are a PlayStation studio.
It would
And I think,
actually, now that you think about it, they might end up putting some content earlier. Like they usually have like a monthly, I believe. I can't remember. It's been a while. I can't remember if it was monthly or weekly, but they would have like special events with the cards and stuff that they would be like, hey, you can get this. I wonder if they would get stuff earlier, like a lot of games have been doing, where you get the content first on PlayStation, like Call of Duty would do with some consoles and stuff like that. That might still be a possibility.
well, I know I was reading on Engadget, and they were saying that, yeah, they're going to do cross-generational saves if you buy like the collector's edition or whatever. It's not going to be a free upgrade. But they were saying that, and I don't know, you can maybe explain what this is a little bit more because I'm not 100% certain. But they're saying that they're not going to allow importation of career or the road to the show progress from previous versions of the game.
Yeah, basically like modes
Xbox.
that are basically modes that you could carry. Like normally you could carry over like this, like you play from like the rookies all the way up to the majors. It's like just a career path thing. Normally, if you have like one that's done halfway into one game, you can completely pull it over into the next one and keep the rosters the same. So you can just keep going, but on like a new platform with the graphics maybe update a little bit and maybe like a little bit of a tweak. So maybe it's the gameplay is just a little bit better that way. It's just now they're like, hey, like it's not going to work on multiple platforms because that's weird and complicated. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. No, but I wonder if that's just a thing because like they're just having a hard time bringing it over now, and if going forward they'll both have it.
Well, I mean, if the game is on the console or like 22, it's going to have no problem doing that because you can easily transfer it from platform to platform because you're using Xbox now for more than one game. I don't know if you would ever transfer Sony to Xbox unless they were like cloud saving it, which is still kind of complicated in some games. Like GTA, I think still doesn't do that. So
Yeah. Does Minecraft do that? Because I know like reverse, Microsoft owns Microsoft owns Minecraft.
You can play on cross-platform. I don't know if servers. I don't know if you make a server on PlayStation that you can suddenly play on Xbox. I can't remember on that front.
Yeah.
I think there's still some things that they're ironing the kinks out. So, and it also might just be like they don't think it's that important a feature. And quite honestly, I don't know if they consider it to be that much anyway because that's an offline mode and you don't really make much of your money there. So they'll probably focus way more on Diamond Dynasty, which is their money-making online mode. So
For sure. Last question I just had on this story, like we're seeing Sony getting a little bit less protective of their exclusives in the sense that, I mean, obviously this one is a little bit different, but MLB The Show is coming to Microsoft. You're seeing God of War in Fortnite, and you're seeing Horizon Zero Dawn and I think Death Stranding going on to PC. Like, are we seeing Sony's kind of loosening their grip on their first parties, or do you think this is just a separate incident?
Well, I think they're already loosening their grip. It's just a matter of, is the question really, would a game like Horizon be on Xbox, in which the answer is no.
No.
I don't think we're ever going to get that far, but I think a game like this makes sense because, again, like, technically it's not their game. They own the likeness to all these athletes that the MLB owns the property rights to. So I think that's a different situation. But when it comes to PC games, we're already seeing the answer to that, and that's yes, they're loosening up a little bit. They're starting to release games on other services because they realize there's money to be made. Especially if you put one of your best games in Horizon on Steam, people play that and go, oh, that's really cool. They may not get a PlayStation, but they're thinking about PlayStation, which is something most PC gamers don't do. So that's already a foot in the door. And I think that's what they're thinking. I don't know if they want to go as far as Xbox, because if you already own an Xbox, well, you're generally not going to get a PlayStation unless you can afford both.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of games coming out soon, that was a terrible segue. Let's move on to something that I know you're definitely more excited about.
No, not at all.
Contain your excitement here, Adam. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Adam, tell the audience, what's your, I know you're kind of mild on this, you're not super excited, but just let the audience know just kind of where you're sitting with this whole Mass Effect thing. I don't know. Have you heard of this, or have you heard of this before?
I don't normally day one purchase games. This might be one of them.
Yeah, and why is that?
To basically put it in the simplest terms possible, the Mass Effect trilogy, quite frankly, in my opinion, is the best long-form storytelling in video games, period. So to be able to replay that with minor tweaks to the gameplay and a much more amazing visual tweak, I am more than happy to get back in now after it's been long enough and kind of re-experience it. Not to mention, I'm probably going to want to because in a few years we'll probably be seeing a Mass Effect 4, and I have different thoughts about that, but that's not what we're talking about here. So,
Sorry, I'm not going to interrupt. Sorry, I am going to interrupt. Just before we go any further, just to catch everyone up, if you haven't heard, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, this is sort of the, what are we calling it? Remaster?
It is a remaster.
Yeah, it is a remaster of the first 3 Mass Effect 3 proper games of Mass
Thank
Effect.
God.
Yeah, so
we don't talk about the other one.
We don't talk about the other one. It's going to include Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 all in one package. Adam, do you want to kind of, I'm sure you probably have more details on this. Do you want to kind of give a rundown of what is included, what's going to happen?
So basically, everything is included except for the multiplayer aspect in 3. Like, all the DLC that was done, even, like, this weird promotional content. Like, you remember back in the day when you'd have to go to, like, the convenience store and buy a Snickers to get something?
Yep.
Yeah, like, I'm glad we don't do that anymore, Square Enix, with Marvel's Avengers. That was a fantastically archaic idea. But, no, everything that's basically put in those games, in those 3 games, is going to be in there. And, obviously, it's updated to 4K with HDR. You're going to get a few minor tweaks, like there's nothing gonna be major. There's some stuff that I wish they would have tweaked more because the original Mass Effect is a weird game to play and then go into 2 and 3. Did you ever play the trilogy at all?
So just for like to admit, I played 1. I really enjoyed it. It clicked with me. I really liked it. I played 2 and I got burnt out. I was playing it and I don't know. I was playing the characters and I was doing all the character stories and I just got to the point where I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, I was doing all the backstories and I was like, fly to this mission and fight for this. I'm like, I don't care. I just want to move on to like the main story, and I just felt it got bogged down too much in character side stories. So I played Mass Effect 1, loved it, played Mass Effect 2, and I got bored because I felt it was too character driven and not enough.
See, as the resident JRPG guy, that was beyond like up my alley. So I was happy as hell to be doing that. The thing with Mass Effect 1, and if it's going to probably happen anyway to people who get the Legendary Edition and play the trilogy for the first time, especially, to play the first game and to play 2 and 3 is a very, very strange change because 1 was built almost like an RPG with gunplay, and then they realized that wasn't quite what they were hoping for because here's the thing with 1. So the 2 biggest differences between 1 and 2 is that 1 had no ammo, 2 and 3 do. And then what 2 and 3 do that 1 doesn't is the aiming is a lot more precise. Because the problem with 1 that I still have to this day is that, you know, when you normally play a first-person shooter, you have the cursor. And if you shoot where the middle of that cursor is, you know that's where the bullet's probably going. When you play on Mass Effect, it's a circle. And if you point it at something, you might hit it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. And I know some people really love Mass Effect 1, and I still do, but I love the story more than I like the gameplay to 1. I don't feel like a shooter works as an RPG in the sense of its gameplay mechanics. I don't think it's easy to do a gun game with RPG, like roll the dice level, like aim-based mechanics. Like, people expect that when you shoot a gun and you point at something, it's going to either hit the thing or it's going to just miss it, not it's going to hit the thing or maybe like 100 feet around it. Yeah. So when they upgraded 2, I know a lot of people got really mad because it went from an RPG, in their opinion, to more of a third-person, like, run and cover kind of game, which I get it. If you were a big RPG guy, if you were thinking like BioWare for their Dragon Age series, Knights of the Old Republic, I get it. But when you understand what they were actually going for in a third-person shooter space epic, it's really, really weird to make an intense shooting game where you can't trust the aim that you're doing. So they made some changes between 1 and 2 that I think were necessary, and I wish they'd actually done it further because it sounded like they were going to completely overhaul 1's system so it'd be more like 2, and I went, you know what, that's going to tick people off, but it's kind of necessary because the weirdest thing that a lot of new players are going to see when they play the Legendary Edition is the inconsistency between 1 and 2. They're going to think like they're 2 completely different games.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Like before when they when released, like you had time between, and I think this is one of like a question to raise when you're doing remasters. Like, and I know they did it with like Shadow of the Colossus and stuff. Like, when you're making these remasters, do you try and capture the spirit of the gameplay and the controls, or do you adjust it for, a modern game style? Like, I mean, our industry is interesting in that it's constantly iterative and like improving. And so, do you take those gameplays and you keep them as is, or do you think it's worthwhile to change it and reflect quality of life improvements that we make through the industry through time?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis because it depends on what you're remastering and when it's from.
Hmm.
So if we're remastering Final Fantasy VII, you can do whatever you want because it's so archaic that it probably needs the overhaul and you can mess with it. If it's something like, say, if they ever remaster like Red Dead Redemption, I don't think you need to change too much. Or in
Oh
the
my
case
God,
of like
please do.
when they remaster like hell, they remastered Last of Us. Like
Yeah.
it was a barely that old game. Like you don't have to do too much. In the case of Mass Effect, I think it's again a case by case. I think 2 and 3 you could largely be okay with and just make very minor quality of life things. Like for example, with the multiplayer being taken out of 3, now you don't have to play that part to get the better endings. So at least it takes some stuff away. There's a few like things that they really could change that would be nice, but I mean I can't expect the world from it. It's a remaster. It's not a remake. You got to take that in stride. But with 1, I think it was really important that they at least do enough to kind of make it feel on par with 2 and 3 because when you really do play them back to back, I know that the games weren't that far apart, but it really does feel in retrospect like 3 like 1 2 is like a 5 to 10 year gap. It feels almost like it was on 2 different consoles with how like different those systems were. So, I think in this specific case, I think you do serve better to at least change more than you leave. But I mean, it's still a really masterful trilogy, and the game is largely carried on its story, so I think most people will play Mass Effect 1. And even if some of the gameplay elements, like the weird shooting mechanics and the Mako, although they've apparently improved the Mako sections, which that's all I want.
I liked those sections. Like I got kind of bored with like the probing in 2. Like it was kind of I kind of missed.
No, the probing in 2 is terrible.
Yeah, I kind of liked the Mako just driving around in that.
The one thing that they did do with the Mako that I'm appreciative of is that they just made it faster because the levels are so open and boring. Like it really when you play Mass Effect 1, it feels like the planets you land are almost like procedurally generated maps. Like there's no life to them except for the 3 key things you need to go to.
Yeah.
So at least now with these sections, they've done enough quality of life things that it won't be like a terrible thing. But like I said, most of it's going to be carried on its story. You're going to play through some of the weird stuff that you're like, really, they thought that was a good idea, but the story's so bloody strong that I think most people will get sucked in by the time you get to the end. So more or less, they're doing changes that's like enough to probably be noticeable, but not enough to be transformative, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. One thing that you mentioned prior, and I mean, I never played the game, so I don't have a super strong opinion. But where do you fall in the decision to go with the updated slash retcon kind of ending to 3?
Well, I don't think it matters now because now that we've seen the trailer for the new game, they've picked their ending.
Yeah.
So now people are going to feel really stupid to pick any of the other endings because it seems like they're not going with those anymore.
Do you think that, like, in hindsight, they should have kept the original ending that they had created, or do you think that was just scrap
Well, they've
it
kept the original ending. They just put the extended cut in. So it's really the same endings. They just added a little bit more to it.
Yeah.
Like, really what happened is that people freaked out about the way the ending was structured, and they just added a few more things to make it seem like you did something. I really do fall under the camp that I don't know what people thought was going to happen. Because, like, without really spoiling anything, the threat that you're facing...
It is a
I
pretty
still
old
don't want to
game.
do it because I think I want to give people the chance to experience it, especially newer players, because this is definitely going to be something that a new generation is going to get into. The way the third game is done is that the end villain is not something you're going to be able to fight alone. So if people seem to think that like there's going to be this amazing ending where you're just going to be able to win the fight, you are not going to be able to win that fight as a small crew on one ship. So the reality is what they kind of wrote, while as dumb as it is, it almost feels like it was the closest thing they could do to make sense of it, especially if you pick the now canon ending, because it really is the kind of option that would have made sense. Not to mention some of the fan theory. Did you ever, you probably didn't go deep enough into this, but there was something called the indoctrination theory with the series.
Can you get into it without spoilers?
Basically, there's this entity in the world that kind of brainwashes some people, and people have theorized that since about the second game at some point, the main character has been slowly being brainwashed over the course of the series, and that the ending might actually have just been a plan to try and get him to kill himself and end the war in their favor rather than lose. So the canon ending is almost like him breaking out of the brainwashing. That's what some people have theorized, and it makes, like, there's a lot of evidence that thinks it makes sense, but no one has obviously confirmed it, because why would the developers admit that, oh yeah, you guys figured it out, yeah, well, that's totally what we meant, because they clearly didn't. They rushed this ending out. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. It's pretty obvious, but...
Now, do you think that, this Legendary Edition, is that going to, salve the wounds that was, Andromeda? Is it going to bring people back in, or what do you think this does for the franchise? Does it reinvigorate people into believing into, like BioWare and stuff, or what do you think?
The Legendary Edition, honestly, is not going to mend wounds. In fact, it might just do what happens when you pour antiseptic on the wound. It's going to burn, but at least you're feeling like, it might heal. I don't think the Legendary Edition is going to make people forget Andromeda, nor do I think it's going to make them forget the ending that comes in Mass Effect 3. What I hope that it does is it at least gets people back into the swing of things, so that when a couple of years from now they finally show a better trailer of what the new game is going to be, that at least gets people kind of geared up again. And that's probably what's going to happen with me, is going through the trilogy again. I haven't gone through it in probably 4 or 5 years, so it'd be nice to go back and with a fresh coat of paint. And I mean, now that the new trailer came out of the Game Show Awards, like I'm already, or not the Game Show Awards, the Game Awards, I'm already theorizing what the hell's going to happen. Because with the ending that they've chosen, they've almost written themselves into a weird corner that I'm kind of curious on what they're going to do. So just getting the trilogy back to play again just kind of makes me get to rehash all that information and kind of go through my head and being like, all right, now what can they do?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's healing anything, but I think it's going to at least get people like back in the swing of at least paying attention again, and it's going to introduce new people, which is really probably what the goal is to get new people back. Or not new people back, to get new people in.
Yeah, to get like new people, like people who may have been like not playing video games, or
there are going to be some like 14, 16-year-olds that are going to be enjoying some nice alien side boob, okay?
For sure. Do you think it's a missed opportunity? They said that it is not going to be designed for, there's not going to be like there's not going to be any sort of enhanced Xbox Series X or S or PlayStation 5 version. It's going to be just, Xbox One, PC, and PS4 with the option for backwards compatibility. Like, is that a missed opportunity? Like, it's coming out in May. Like, we're going to be, 6 months into a new generation of consoles? Like, obviously not everyone has one at that point, but I mean, there's going to be a lot more. Is that sort of a missed opportunity in terms of just having it on the backwards or the previous generation consoles?
I don't think so. I don't think in this specific case that it means anything. God only knows how long they've been working on it, so it's very possible they were working with the PS4 intended. But quite honestly, like, to make it that big an upgrade, it's still going to be in 4K in some aspects, so you're still going to be able to play it on PS5 in 4K probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a PC thing, I'm not sure. But generally speaking, like, I don't think it's not a remake, so it's not really going to be that much of a fresh coat of paint that it matters. Yeah. I don't, and not to mention, like, I don't think it really makes a difference. I mean, it'd be nice. I don't know if it's going to be 60 frames on PS4. I doubt it would be. I think it's still going to be locked at 30, but it's fine. Like, it could it be better? Yeah, I'd always love to have the PS5 upgrade version, but I'd rather they not spend extra time on that and work on the next game, because I want that shot in my veins as soon as possible, because I want that redemption story. Because, like, you asked the question, do you think it'll heal the wounds? No, but I want the promise that it might. That's really what I'm looking for, because Mass Effect, as a personal thing for me, is pretty much like that generation's Final Fantasy. Like, I grew up with Final Fantasy as a kid on Super Nintendo and PlayStation, and Mass Effect became my new Final Fantasy, because since 10, in my opinion, Final Fantasy's kind of floundered. So honestly, to be able to have what became like my new favorite thing, I was really looking forward to Andromeda, and that killed me. So I'm kind of hoping for that reminder of what used to be fun, because as like a lot of people feel with various series that you get into, and this doesn't just go for gaming, this goes for movies, this goes for TV shows. Like, you love this show, but the 9th season's just absolutely terrible, but you want that 10th season to be good again, because you want to remember. Unless you're Game of Thrones, in which case there's no saving you now. But no, I just want the remaster to exist to remind me of what it used to be, so that when the 4th game comes out, I'm at least willing to give them the chance to not fuck up again. Even though that With EA under the umbrella, I kind of expected anyway. Considering the BioWare has just been in this really weird state. I think we already talked about it. Maybe we did or maybe we didn't.
I
But
don't think we did. I think it was just me and you just chatting one time.
it might have been that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like BioWare's already on this weird like. Could they be on the way out too? Like so many game companies are, but who knows? I just want them to not be because Mass Effect is like my favorite series from them. So
Yeah, I think, to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker, but I don't know, I think having it come out in May, and good luck if they end up getting bumped, but I think you're going to start having more and more exclusives to the next generation come out, and you're going to look and you're going to be like, yeah, it looks good, but I mean, I've got, brand new generation made, exclusives for my next gen console, and it might look old, it might feel old. I mean, you've already got the hurdle that you're basically repainting an old game, and then it's even on last gen tech. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna like kill it or make it like a failure at launch. But
no, they'll definitely do very well. I think you underestimate how like really passionate that fan base is and really just wants to go back and play FemShep some more. So
for sure, yeah, and it very well could be. Like I said, I am not the biggest Mass Effect fan to begin with, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It's also a remaster. I don't think they're intending to make like a boatload of money. I think they're just intending to reinvigorate the fan base because they've been in a really rough state.
And probably remind you, hey, remember when BioWare was good and you trusted us?
Remember when we were Game of the Year like every time we put something out?
Yeah. That's coming up in May of 2021. I want to take a time and go back to the year that was 2020.
I was hoping we wouldn't. I was trying to forget that year.
What a year it was. Lots of things happened, but one thing that I think happened to all of us, we all got stuck inside, and there's very little to do except play video games. And with that being said, PlayStation has released their PlayStation Year in Review. If you are a PlayStation subscriber player, if you have a PlayStation, you can go to the PlayStation blog and they have a 2020 wrap-up. And here you can kind of see, if you put in your information, they'll tell you, how many games you played, how long you played. And I thought it might be fun for you and I to kind of go through and see, kind of compare notes and see what our year looked like. So
basically, we're going to tell you guys how much of a no life we have.
Bunch of nerds we are.
But I mean, you're listening to a gaming podcast, so you probably are joining the club anyway. So I don't think it's going to make a difference.
We're all in
now
good
we're just
company.
competing.
There's no judgment here. It's a safe space here, Adam. There's no judgment. We're all here. We're all in the same boat. It's not like we can go outside and do sports and do like wood carvings and stuff. We're all stuck inside, so might as well escape to other worlds. Adam, do you want to? How do you want to do this? Do you want to do it as like you want to bring out our competitive side and kind of compare notes? Do we want to see if there's any surprises? How do you want to do this?
I mean, we could just kind of go from each category and just kind of talk. I don't know if there's going to be much of a competitive aspect for it because I don't think winning really makes me feel that much better about it. I don't. This isn't going to be like our Metacritic contest. I don't think I'm going to be being like, oh, I played longer hours than you did. Oh, I'm so good.
Yeah. I think it's going to be different camps. You're of the camp of how much did I not play and like do other things, and me being a new dad, I'm like, how much time was I able to actually get to play? Once again, I hope my wife isn't listening and she comes down and realizes how much free time I have. So, Adam, let's start with an easy one. How many games did you play in 2020 according to PlayStation?
Well, we don't know if any of this is bugged, but according to PlayStation, I played 56 games, which I don't believe because I'm relatively sure that means there was a bunch of games that I played for 5 minutes and went no.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I would hope that it would count like more than an hour's worth of time, but I'm assuming it's just anything you turned on, which could also be demos. That's something I thought about too, because I played a few demos for my channel as well at some point, so that might also be part of it. I'm not sure how it counts it.
Yeah,
I feel like 56 is too high a number because I don't generally play a lot of games because I play a lot of lengthy ones at a time. So
I was going to say, you play JRPGs, like you don't get out of those. If 50 hours is just the intro to a JRPG.
Like if I was to make a proper estimate, I think it's more than I think it's about half that maybe 30 at max, and there's probably either demos or like bunch of nopes littered in there. I'm sure I wish it would actually break down all the games for me so I could see like, oh, okay, so this game that I put 2 minutes in, you counted. Okay, that's weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's apparently the number it tells me, and I'm not quite believing that one, but
Yeah, so I have 36, and like you, I'm kind of like, that seems pretty high. Like, not in terms of like it's not a high number, but I think for me, like I can't remember all 36 games that I played. I mean, trying to think now, like I mean, there's Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Fall Guys, but I mean, yeah, I guess there's like random like free PS Plus games I tried and stuff, so it might be those two. I mean, the obvious ones here, there's some that I'm seeing that I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that I played this one. What were your top games for 2020?
So from bottom to top, well, I guess it only gives you your top three. So Metal Gear Solid was my third one at 105. Legends of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 is at 136. That's going to get broken this year when I finish 4, which I'm already at about 120. And I'm
Yep.
pretty sure I've got at least another 20 to go. And then number 1 was Persona 5 Royal at 139 hours. So JRPGs definitely ran the list. It says my top genre was action adventure at 372. Again, I'm looking at that being like, how many action adventure games did I play for that long? Because I'm thinking Metal Gear and maybe God of War, and after that I'm thinking I don't think I played anything else that would have been that long.
Well, here's the thing. Do you think they count JRPGs as a genre, though?
They would probably count them as RPGs though.
True. But then you've got action RPGs. Like, I mean, technically, like a lot of action games now are RPGs.
I'm going
Like,
through
would
my
Ghost of
list
Tsushima
just
be?
to see if I can find anything that can kind of make sense of it. And like one of the few things that I think might have been a part, they might consider Minecraft part of that. I'm wondering.
Yeah. Like, I mean, what would you put? What would you put Minecraft as if you had to put it as a category?
I don't know. I'd probably put it under the casual.
See,
Or,
I'd put it under.
or
It might be adventure, right?
yeah. I mean, there's also the
I don't know.
Yakuza games. That actually Yakuza might be part of it. Yeah, that probably makes sense. That might be it. That might be a big one.
Yeah. My top
Yeah, you
ones
know
from
what? It's
bottom to top.
probably Yakuza is probably a big reason why. Now that I'm looking at my
Yeah.
my trophy list.
Yeah, I think it's just the lines are getting blurred between like RPG and action RPG and stuff.
I wish they break it down a little bit harder just so I could kind of see it, get a better idea of like what everything was. But I know this is
Yeah.
just some weird formality that they use like a very bare minimum on the algorithms for.
Oh,
So
this is just for fun. I don't think they have like MIT grads with PhDs doing this data analysis. They
but they
probably got
should.
Jeff. They probably got Jeff the intern be like, hey, can you whip up some code real quick? And he's like, yeah, sure. Dust off his little Cheeto fingers and start typing. So
Flaming
um,
hot Cheeto fingers. Thank you very much.
exactly. Well, that's staples, right? For me, my top games, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I got into the DLC for Witcher 3, so I did the um, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, and I really enjoyed those, and I ended up spending 53 hours. Fun story. Witcher 3 is one of the games that game I played it when it first came out, and oh my god, did that come out at a perfect time. I was fun employed that summer, and I like had a lot of free time and sunk so many hours into that, and that was one of the few times where my wife had to come in and be like, so I know you're having fun, and I know that like you've got the time, but you know there's an outside you should go check out sometimes, and that was one of the few times she's had to do that with me.
That's
The
that's
other
when you
two
turn to an
are
anime character and be like, no.
yeah. The other two, no surprises for me in terms of what I play. Last of Us Part 2, 57 hours, and Ghost of Tsushima, 69 hours. Nice.
Heh, nice.
Yeah. So those are the ones for me that are my top three. Total hours of gameplay in 2020. Now this can't seem right. I wonder if this is like, I mean, I know I've had some times where the game was on pause and I just left the screen on, or if they count rest mode, but I've got total hours of gameplay in 2020 as 1,109. So if I
Yeah,
do the
I almost don't
math,
want to believe that because there's no way that you only beat me by about 500 because I'm at 1672.
1672, yeah. So like, if we do the math, PlayStation is telling me I've spent 46 days playing video games, and that doesn't seem right. So I don't know. I hope that's not the case, but I mean, it might be. I just,
I mean, I kind
yeah,
of agree with where you're at that it might be downtime because I do keep this thing on quite a bit. So I wonder if it counts just like that where it's just sitting on a screen.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where like I'll be playing and I will just like I have to go do something. I have to be an adult and I'll just put it on pause and walk away. The other thing is it counting gameplay, or if I'm streaming like Netflix or YouTube or something like that, is that counting playtime as well?
I would imagine it's anytime a game is open. That would be my guess.
No, give me the out here, buddy. Give me the out. So you're at 16. You said 1642.
1672.
72. Okay. Yeah. Uh, did you do mostly like I'm assuming it's mostly local offline?
Oh yeah,
kind of play?
100%. It was a 97% to 3% thing.
Yeah, I was 99 to 1%.
I'm pretty sure that almost all of my online time this year was Minecraft. I don't generally play a lot of online games anymore that are competitive because I don't like I don't like the community of it anymore.
Yeah. No, I was the same way. I had Ghost of Tsushima was pretty much the number one. I probably played Overcooked with some friends. Fall Guys I played a little bit, but it was Ghost of Tsushima with one of my buddies that him and I just ended up playing for a while when that came out. It came out like at the perfect time.
I think in general, like just games like I played so much Destiny back when it was out that I think like online gameplay, I'm just like, man, I don't like dealing with people anymore. I'd rather just deal with myself. I already yell at myself enough. Why do I want to yell at other people too?
Yeah, I'm enjoying this time. I don't need someone to ruin it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other stats on here that you want to kind of go through that you want to share that you're surprised by?
No, not in particular. I mean, everything else made sense. Like it said, I played most Sunday afternoon. Well, that makes perfect sense for most people.
See, mine was weird, and it said that my most common playtime was Monday afternoons, and I'm like, I work. I don't think it's Monday afternoons that I'm playing. So if my boss is listening, though, that it cannot be right. So.
But otherwise, like it's like the achievement things, I don't care. It's a non-thing for me. And then the funny thing is like, oh, you only played 11 total PS5 gameplay hours. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I basically only played Astros and Bugsnax. So I'm not shocked by that. If I had played anything else, it would have changed that. But yeah, no, we're not at that point yet. The PS5 games are in such massive supply that I'm going to be overriding that yet.
See, I've got 66 hours of PS5 gameplay, with most of it going to Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
You need to get onto like Miles Morales. You need to get into that.
I mean, until I convince my friend to console share with me, I'm not paying money for that. I'm gonna mooch that shit, yo.
I think you should go for it. Pull the trigger.
Well, I still gotta finish a 150-hour game, so. I mean, also, and Ghost of Tsushima is on my shelf, so I'm gonna have some weird priorities. Maybe I should do Miles first, though.
No, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of tempted. I think Ghost of Tsushima, in my opinion, is a better game, but it's a longer game, and I feel like you need to just.
I need to offset my 100-hour epics with something that's under 10.
You need to burn through Miles Morales, and it's a fantastic game. Like, you're gonna love it, and
that's
then
not
switch
true.
over.
Well, that's not true. I have played a short game. I did play Coffee Talk, so that was like 3 hours. So I'm sure that counts, right? I offset 150 with 3.
You know, if you're looking at your averages, you just brought it down significantly.
It's like playing baseball and you having an ERA. It's like, look, you maybe have allowed 150 runs in this game, but you only allowed 3 here. You know, clearly it's going to make your stats look a little bit better.
For sure. It's all about just like, playing the numbers. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that about concludes this week's episode. Adam, any sort of closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't touch on yet that you want to mention?
I am more than happy with ending a gaming podcast with a baseball stats reference. I am more than okay with that.
All right, we will leave it there. Well, thank you guys for joining us on the 3rd episode of the PixelPlay podcast. If you have any questions or you want to email us, you can email us at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter and Instagram, just not actively yet, at PixelPlaycast. We can also be found pretty much on YouTube, Spotify, and all major podcast services. Have I got that right, Adam?
Soon.
We're working on it. We're on a lot of them, though. We're on a lot. I was looking at them. Like Anchor, we're on quite a few of them. Because I think we're on like Google, we're on Anchor. What else are we on?
Apple's the big one to work on.
We're working on it.
That one takes time.
We'll get there. Anyways, Adam, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I will see you next week.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.